Hey everybody, welcome to Love and Reload, the voice of the relocation industry. I'm your host, Ben Cross. I'm here with my good friend Teresa Howe from TRH Consulting. Hey Teresa, how's it going with you?
Excellent. Happy to be here.
Yeah, it's good to be here. We're live in LA right now. I don't get to the West Coast. People say the West Coast is the best coast. Teresa, what say you about LA?
I say that.
Because you're not originally
70-something degrees outside today.
The weather's gorgeous.
Yeah.
I know I'm wearing a scarf just for sympathy for y'all.
Well,
but you're not originally from LA, are you?
I'm from Dallas.
You're a Dallas
Don't
gal,
you live
like
there?
me. Yeah, I'm in Dallas too.
But you're not from there.
No, I mean I was born in Dallas.
You were?
I was born in Baylor Hospital downtown.
So
Dallas.
was I.
You were born in Baylor. I am Baylor babies. All right, let's go. No, that's really cool. I did not know that. We got people checking in. Get in the comments. I want to know who you are, where you are, what's going on. Christian Tarnedden here,
Hey,
checking
Christian.
in from SoCal. He's from Orange County too. Are you in
Yes.
Orange County technically?
Absolutely. Not
From the
technically,
OCC?
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, I just glom it all together.
Yeah.
I don't know the difference. I don't know when one starts, the other begins. It's good to see you, Christian, out there. Adrian Grimes, hit that like button. Get in the comments. I want to know your questions. He says, hey, Teresa, checking in from Global HQ. Drew Phillips in the house. What's up, Drew? Don't get me started on the East Coast, West Coast debate. We don't need any like gang violence,
Yeah,
Drew,
no,
okay?
it's easy.
We don't need that happening. Oh my gosh, this is great. Jana checking in. Happy Wednesday, everyone. Looking forward to hearing from Teresa. Jana Edgar, hi Teresa.
Hey, Jana.
Got a lot
Dallas girl
got
now.
a lot of fans out
Came
there.
from SoCal, went to Dallas just recently.
Oh, the other way around now. That's been happening a lot too.
Yeah.
People been doing that. Alex checking in. Bring the good stuff, Teresa. Got a lot of people checking in here, supporting. Hit that like button. Give Teresa some love here. Get some questions in here as well. Laura Costa, checking in from
my girl.
Sacramento.
One of my clients.
Nice. What's up, Laura? Justin checking in. Love me some Teresa Howe. Game changer for our industry. What do you think about that game changer?
Well, I don't know. Ask Justin.
Justin, what do you mean by that game changer? Tell us more. Justin, give us a little testimony in there.
Yeah.
Lisa Ross checking in from San Diego. Diana McGrogan checking in from Santa
Nice.
Clara.
Hey, Diana. One of my California peeps.
Drew repping the Bay. This is great. Lisa Scully checking in from Century 21 Advantage Realty in Kentucky,
Lisa.
Ohio, West Virginia.
Hey, Lisa.
You work with some really great realtors out there and brokers.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about TRH Consulting and what you do.
So I got laid off in 2017 after a 30-year career.
The best stories start this way, by the way, I feel like.
30-year career at Coldwell Banker, the company owned. Thought I would finish my career there and got laid off and took a year off. My daughter was a senior in school, so I thought, okay, I'll take a year off. Went to work for another company and worked there a year, and it was bought by Compass.
Wow.
Which, what's happening this week, right?
Yeah.
We're seeing some by Compass. And I got laid off again. And I said, nope, not doing this anymore. I'm gonna consult, because one of the things I learned through these many years of being a relocation director for a large multi-state region is that I made a lot of mistakes along the way, and if I can help other people not make those mistakes and do things faster, then I wanted to do that. So that's what I did, and I started in 2020, and we know what happened then.
When in 2020 did you, because I started my business in 2022, so we have a lot in common, I feel like, right now. When in 2020 did you start? Do you remember?
I kind of launched it in January, but things were already starting to get weird, and I got clients right out of the gate.
Yeah.
And then, March,
Boom.
everything happened. And everything, it was, I didn't know what to do.
Nobody did.
Like you don't know, you don't want to keep pressing people because everybody's freaking out, right? And particularly on the real estate side, everybody was frozen.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna write this. So I started writing my blog. And I wrote about COVID, I wrote about whatever I could think about. And now, 4 years later, I have over 200 blog posts. I guess I had a lot to say, apparently. So that's kind of how it all started.
That story is so interesting, because that's so my story too. I started Love and Relo in January of 2020, not even knowing COVID was going to hit.
Right, of course.
And then March happens and everything becomes so important.
Right,
the content, the watering hole for the
Right.
industry to kind of come together and do a pulse check and say, okay, what's going on out there? Are we in trouble? Are we going to make it through this career-wise, personally, health-wise, everything? And, you know, that's an incredible story.
It was a tricky time because you didn't kind of know what, you know, you didn't want to push people. You didn't want to say, oh, but I can help you, because everybody was worried about themselves.
How do you balance that empathy with urgency?
Right,
Because
right.
you're like, hey, I got to make stuff happen for
Right,
myself, but
right.
I also know people are hurting out here.
Right. Of course, and then not so long later, vaccine happens, people start moving, self moves, right? Not relocation, because relocation was still pretty well
Yes.
stalled. All of a sudden now people are like, I want to get out of the city, I want a bigger house, I need an office because I'm working at home. So
Home gym, home office,
so once
home
that all
Peloton.
started happening, I kind of felt like, okay, I can now start to kind of push people because business is flowing again. And, you know, and interest rates were still good. So there was a lot of business, and most people and most brokerages in 2021 will tell you that while their corporate relocation business was down, their broker-to-broker business was up. So it kind of balanced it all out, and they were kind of back to 2019 numbers almost, some of them.
Tell me about the difference for those people who don't know out there
Right.
between relocation business and broker-to-broker
Right.
business.
So broker-to-broker is when an agent in a real estate company has a client and they refer them to another broker. They're going from SoCal to Dallas. We'll use that example. And they refer that to another brokerage in Dallas. Nothing to do with corporate relocation. Self moves typically could be a lump sum, but not moving because of a corporate funded relocation.
Sure.
So broker-to-broker business is a huge part of real estate companies' business because their agents know a lot of people and they know people moving. So, you know, corporate relocation is, as you know, it's based on when the corporations need to move somebody. And during COVID, they were very cautious, rightfully so, and people didn't want to move. And then interest rates ticked up, and then people really didn't want to move.
Right.
Because they didn't want to, they were locked into their interest rate, and they didn't want to move if they didn't have to. And then we had the remote work situation. So that all those things really affected the corporate relocation.
Yeah, really fascinating. Get in the comments here. I want to know what your questions are for Teresa. I'm really intrigued by these market dynamics because as we're going into, or we're in this really weird time that we're in now, and then we have the NAR settlement, and this is all, your story is all about adapting, I feel like, to what's going on around you, whether it be on the micro side, like losing a job, or on the macro side, whether it be NAR or downtick in just general volume and everything. And I feel like we have to get really... we have to get really adaptable. We have to get creative. Get in the comments here. I want to hear your questions here. People are checking in with us. We'll say what's up to Rob Zeitz out there in Cambridge, Mass. Mary Piper checking in from Houston.
Mary.
Brian Daly checking in.
Brian.
Deb Shields from Las Vegas. Lisa Scully, I think we said what's up. Christian here. Frida checking in. Frida Ingram Brown.
Frida.
From Charlotte. Hey, y'all from Charlotte. Shout out to my girl, Teresa.
I love Frida.
What's up, Frida? Wow, very cool. Justin says, real estate navigating all these challenges heads above water thanks to her.
Aw.
That's really cool. How does it make you feel when you hear,
Awesome.
when you hear that? Yeah.
Awesome. You know, look, all I do is I come in with a different perspective. People can, when you're inside your own company and your own head and your own business, sometimes you lose perspective, right?
Oh, sure. So
I help people get perspective. And sometimes I push them in a way that's a little uncomfortable, and I tell them things that maybe they don't want to hear. But that's my job, right? It's to help them look at ways that they can generate more business and more revenue. And that's really the bottom line. And, you know, improve customer service and those things. But ideally, for me, it's about helping brokers not have to depend on their agents. Because I wouldn't want to be a real estate broker right now, because literally, if your agents don't produce, your company will fail, or if they leave the company. So my mantra is generate your own business and push it back out to the agents. Then that way you recruit and retain, because they want to come because you're giving them relocation or broker-to-broker leads, or you create an affinity program, or you're doing online leads. Whatever you're doing, you're now giving them a reason to stay. And you're controlling the amount of money that you make and that they make.
Yeah, and that has got to be a big value proposition for recruiting realtors too. If you
Yeah.
have leads in business that they can work on,
Right.
you know, you mentioned something about the broker to broker business, and I have to think with relocation volumes being so low, this broker to broker idea has to be an interesting growth opportunity for a traditional relocation director.
It is, because people are still moving, and also you have the lump sum programs that are oftentimes not really maintained very well. So they're
Yeah.
not, you know, the lump summers don't necessarily have to go through the program. They just say, here's your thing, go figure it out. So there's a huge opportunity for brokers to capitalize on that business.
How would they do something like that? I mean, is it the matter of creating an affinity program with corporations?
Can, for sure. I think, you know, that's one of the big things that I do is help people create affinity programs. And, you know, the thing that brokers have that sometimes they forget is their superpower is their local business, is their local relationships that they have. And, you know, a lot of relocation departments were built on RMC business, relocation management
Sure.
company business, and it just came in, right? It just piled in.
You probably get a little lazy and complacent with that business just
No,
coming
probably,
in.
definitely.
You check your inbox, like, oh, three new initiations.
Right.
That's
Like
great.
it just, I mean, and I'm one of those that we did thousands of them. You know, we worked with every RMC when I was back doing it. And so you do get complacent. And so what you have to really look at now is, what are my relationships locally? People are still moving locally because people die. You know, all those things that happen that force a move. We don't have as much, you know, moving because we kind of feel like it because of all the, you know, interest rates and all that kind of stuff. But people still move. And so if you use those relationships that you have, either through your broker owner, through your agents, through yourself, you can build relationships with not only corporations, but with associations.
Oh, really?
With
like what kind of an association?
Okay, let's say there's a union group in your
Okay.
market. I'm working with a client right now that's in Long Beach, and
Yeah.
there's the whole port there.
Yeah.
There's unions.
Longshoremen.
Right.
Yeah.
So once you go there, you build a relationship with them. You say, hey, anybody that wants to buy or sell a house, we'll give you a rebate. Now, it's not legal. There's 9 states that's not legal to do rebates. There's some workarounds, but so there's opportunities there to create kind of a holistic program for these people. And so not only do you have the corporations that might relocate a few people a year, you have the people that have all their employee base that are relocating. Then you have associations, and one of my favorites is credit unions.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to get mortgages. So you go and offer it to their members, their credit unions. I had a huge credit union program that had clients all over the country. So there's opportunity there, but it takes work.
Yeah.
And it takes structure, and it takes marketing, and
no one probably knowing how to navigate that. I mean, there's some sophistication and some bureaucracy and just the way
Oh,
business
without
is
question.
done when you start navigating these affinity partnership programs, especially within large corporations.
There is, without question.
I think about, gosh, the biggest affinity program was like that USAA program. I mean,
which is coming back, by the way.
Is it coming back? Really?
So they say.
Oh, wow. Look at this breaking
More to
news
follow.
here on Love and
More to
Relo.
follow.
Teresa Howe here, call her. She's got some tips out there. This is
More to
interesting.
follow.
Get in the comments. I want to know your thoughts on this. What are your reactions to what Teresa is saying here? Jillian saying, hey, Teresa, love the camera setup. Thank you, Joe. We got 4K. That's about as many K as we're going here, okay?
Too close.
Any more K, I'm quitting. That's
Same.
what I'm saying, you know. We'll just do this. We'll go back
Need
to
the
talk radio.
bridal lens, the bridal filter.
Yeah, can you get some Vaseline on the camera, please, here? It's so funny what's old is new again, right? You know?
Exactly.
I love it. This is great. Justin saying, a savior for baby RDs. Relocation directors, I imagine.
I do a lot of mentoring with a lot of baby RD.
Is that what they call you, the RD savior?
Yeah,
The
I
relocation
don't know.
directors?
I'll take it if that's
We're
what
working
they're
on
calling it.
taglines here.
Yeah.
Love your blog, Teresa Christensen.
thank
If people want to check out your blog, how do they find it?
Just teresahowe.com, no H, TERESA Howe.com. And then I got past newsletters. I do a newsletter once or twice a quarter, and a blog almost every week.
Very
Every week.
cool.
Over 200.
Wow.
Over 200 articles
That's a
in
lot
there.
of content.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I apparently have a lot to say.
Yeah. Hey, even when you don't, I've done a lot of these, and I don't always have a lot to say, but then I just rely on you or somebody else that knows what they're talking about.
Got you, don't worry.
Or these great, people in the comments here. Drew Phillips saying broker to broker self moves are the new norm, and that's where the
Yeah.
new volume support is needed
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Is that where, I mean, is that what we're all looking at now? I mean, we're sitting here actually in a mover's office right here at Move Happy. Shout out to Move Happy for hosting us today here in LA. But I mean, is that kind of where we need to all be looking, is back in the consumer residential space, or what are your thoughts on it?
I think we have to stop depending on corporate relocation. I mean, it's still going to happen because people need expertise in different places. Is it going to be the volume it was before? I don't know. I mean, we were talking about it earlier. It's if the people at the top want everybody back in the office, then we will see a flurry of corporate activity when people either have to move back to the office or they leave and you have to rehire and move people to the office. Is it going to be as much as it was in the past? I don't know. Yeah. But, you know, people are still going to move because they either are retiring or, you know, they just want to change the scenery, whatever they want.
But what I love what you're doing is when I talk to people outside our industry, either in academia, like Parag Khanna, Dr. Parag Khanna, who's probably the foremost expert on global mobility that nobody's ever heard of and writes books and sits on the World Economic Council, or I talk to like private equity firms that look at us from the outside looking in. They're all excited about mobility and people moving around the country and the world. We're inside the industry saying, oh my God, the sky is falling, our business has never been worse, yada, yada. But it's because people are moving, it's just not being managed anymore.
And that's what we're talking about, is the broker to broker and the affinity.
Yeah. So I feel like you're on to that, because it's been a code that most people just haven't been able to crack, because I feel like we're almost coming at it from the wrong direction. What kind of advice would you give people as they're thinking about their strategy and how to maybe kind of move in this environment?
So I think it comes down to it's not just going to pile in anymore. You have to make it happen. Mm-hmm. And that takes work, and it takes a broker commitment. The broker owner has to commit to it, and sometimes it's hard for them to see the vision.
Why is that important?
Because they're the money people, first of all, and they got to hire me if they want me to help them. Take some money.
Yeah, so it takes investment.
Yeah, and you've got to trust that your relocation director or your business development person can do it. And sometimes we have a lot of mid to small size brokers that are one-people shops. They are a relocation director that is everything. They are the coordinator. They are everything.
Wow.
And it's very difficult.
Are they doing the area tours too?
No, typically the agents will do that. Could, but not typically. But they're handling all the volume, and they're responsible for business development. So the problem is that the relocation directors become reactive instead of proactive.
Right. So more operations and not sales. They're not developing
because
the business.
You don't want to. You have to balance it, right? If you're not responding to things that are coming in, you're going to lose the business. Yeah. So you have to be reactive, but that leaves very little time to be proactive. And if the brokers could see the value of hiring somebody to help with business development, or hiring a lower level coordinator and let the RD go out and do business development, it's a hard sell sometimes. Yeah. And you have to really kind of influence them in helping them understand what the payoff will be in the long run.
Well, I was going to ask you about ROI. Everybody's obsessed with ROI, and sometimes I feel like it's almost impossible to quantify in some ways. But I mean, from an ROI standpoint, or a kind of a ramp up period, how long does it take to start seeing the fruits of that labor?
I mean, it could be a year. Yeah. And that's sometimes hard for them to swallow, because you're not just going out and getting the business. You've got to create the marketing materials. You've got to create the strategy. You've got, it's a thing.
It might take a few meetings. It might take a showing face at some meetings and networking.
And you're going, let's say we go to a credit union, you're not going to, that person that you meet with is not the one that's going to sign on the dotted line. They got a board that they got to go back to. So you've got to either meet with the board or provide materials to the board. It's a process that takes a while to get that business. Just like when the RMCs go get corporate business. That doesn't happen overnight either. It's a long selling cycle, and so they have to be patient. Yeah. And sometimes they are, and sometimes they're not.
Yeah, it's so funny, because I've worked. Get in the comments too. I want to hear your reactions to this. It's so funny that you mentioned that, because I was working with a broker, and actually sold my home, or helped me buy a house, I should say. And they wanted to do more relo business, and so we hosted an event in Frisco at the Star, at Dallas Cowboys headquarters.
Nice.
Right? Beautiful event, right?
Yeah.
And they kind of sponsored it, took care of everything, and phenomenal, right? And And they kind of like were like, okay, so what did we get out of that? Like, where's the
Yeah.
listing? Like,
Right.
where's the?
Right.
And I'm like, well, you got to understand, like, you know, we're bringing Fortune 500 companies to the table here.
Right.
But things are, you're not going to just walk
Right.
out of here with a listing.
Right.
You're not going to walk
Right.
out of here with a new
Yeah.
home buyer. And they were very transactional.
Yeah.
And I was
Right.
like, hold on, pump the brakes.
Exactly.
Even though they're the owner of a broker, you know, agency.
Right.
Where you're like, you know, your ownership level, so you should be thinking strategically. It was hard for them to
Yeah.
not say, I paid $800 for this event.
Right.
Where's my
Right.
listing?
And
you
that's
know?
real estate is very transactional, particularly
Yeah.
for agents. But when you look at the broker as it is, look, brokerages are on the surface to the public and to entities look all the same. Like it's a field of horses, but you need to be a unicorn, right? You've got to figure out how to set yourself apart. So one of the things I try to do is help these people, and Laura Costa's on the phone.
Yeah.
She on the call. She's from Grounded in Sacramento, and so that entity is veteran owned. Sam Allen is the owner. He's
Okay.
a veteran, and he comes to this long line of fabulous veteran families. You know, his family is great military service, and so we got them veteran certified.
Wow.
So
Okay.
that helps them. They have a really cool model anyway. They're very kind of an urban company in Sacramento, and they're really involved in the community. And so
Yeah.
that kind of sets them apart. But then now having that veteran certification kind of gives them a little bit of a leg up, so they get noticed a little more.
Yep.
So you can't just say, hey, use me because I'm the best, or I'm number one, or our agent's in the top 1%, because that does not resonate with corporations or
Everyone's
consumers.
saying that.
Like everyone can say that,
Yeah.
you know, and who proves it, first of all.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things, you've got to figure out a way to find what sets you apart.
Right, a little hook or something.
And that's what I help them do,
Yeah.
either through minority owned, you know, woman owned, veteran owned, or what is your unique value proposition? What really makes you different? And you got to really talk the talk and walk the walk. You can't just say, we have great company culture.
Yeah,
Do
our
you?
culture, yeah.
What is it really? You know, what does that mean? And so I think we have a brokerage problem, which kind of leads to the NRO settlement discussion about that brokers are having trouble, I think, differentiating themselves, and agents as well.
Well, we all are out here,
Right,
right? I mean,
right.
the information age has brought everyone to the forefront at the same time. Everything is indexable, and there's so much sameness out there. I mean, gosh, I hear from corporate clients talking about RMCs and all the sameness.
Right.
As a mover, I worked in the
Right.
moving industry, and everyone just, you know, all these blue trucks look alike. I mean, what's
Right.
the difference? And,
So true.
You know, everyone's won awards from somebody.
Right.
Who cares? You know, at some point. So you're totally right. This is really interesting. Get in the comments here. Want to know your questions. We've got some comments coming in. I want to share. Tina Bodolowski
Yes, girl.
said TRH Consulting has been a blessing, even for an experienced relocation department. Love, Teresa.
Aw.
Elizabeth Fowler checking in from Lubbock. Scott Enoch checking in, says remote hybrid lump sum programs, interest rates, costs.
Yep.
Yeah. Kathleen Hollerback, experienced RDs, love Teresa's eloquence in expressing what our world is like.
Oh.
Wow, you got some love out here. This is really cool. Hit that like button. Get in here. It's Love and Relo. Show some love out here. Scott Tompkins says Teresa's an absolute expert. This is fantastic. Scott saying people moving to downsize, etc., is not part of global mobility or this industry. Interesting. Get in here with questions too. I think I might have saw a question here. Kathleen says broker to broker is definitely a part of the relocation world for brokers level. It is 50% of my business at my brokerage in Northern Colorado. I manage all of this for my brokerage on my own. Kathleen, how'd you build that? 50%. That's a lot. That's pretty cool. Scott saying yes, they are talking about sameness. I think market became saturated with realtors. Yeah, it felt like a couple of years ago everybody became a realtor.
Yeah.
I guess this comes in waves, right?
During
And then-
COVID, everybody was like, ooh, free money, and I
Free
can go
money.
to school online, and it'll be great. And you know, we have 1.5 million realtors in this country.
Uh-huh.
That's twice as many as we need.
Yeah.
We need half that many.
Yeah.
And many will start to leave as kind of the settlement starts to do its thing.
Yeah, we'll talk about the settlement too.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, well let's get into the settlement. Let's
Okay.
talk about that because that's
Sure.
the kind of the elephant in the room here.
Yeah.
And I think we have questions here. Get the questions in. If I missed the question, repeat the question so I can get to it. But let's talk about the settlement. NAR settlement came out. What's the impact? Well, give us a little bit of context too.
Sure.
There might be some people out there that don't really understand what's happening. So set the table for us.
So the lawsuit, the principal lawsuit, there's a bunch of them swirling around out there, but was the Sitzer-Burnett lawsuit, and it was a money grab by the attorneys. There was no consumers harmed in the way that we handled commissions, basically, and it all
So it was a big class action lawsuit.
Big class action
where
lawsuit
they're like, we can put a bunch of people together, we'll make some money.
Yeah, we're going to make a ton of money, and we've been commissions have been paid the way they were paid for 100 years, and the reason it worked is because the seller paid the commission because they had the equity from the sale of their home.
They were making all the money on the deal.
Yeah, right. So they had the money to pay the commission, and it worked. It was fine, but the attorneys were like, wait a minute, this is, why is the seller paying the whole thing? Why shouldn't the buyer pay it? So through the lawsuit, which they lost, and AR lost, and the brokers ended up having to pay huge settlements. So my feeling about it is the lawsuit was horrible, but the outcome actually has been pretty good.
Oh, interesting.
And
Why is that?
a lot of people won't agree with me because, of course, I don't work for a brokerage. You didn't have to pay millions of dollars in settlements.
Beautifully, people can't throw tomatoes at
Yes.
you here, so you're safe.
So look, it happened. We couldn't do anything about it. It was going to happen. It happened. So now we have to deal with the repercussions, kind of all the changes that came down from negotiation of the settlement with NAR and the judges and the DOJ and all those things. And so, what it's actually done is it has created way more transparency in the real estate transaction. And because the buyer never had to pay commission, they never understood how it worked because the seller always paid the commission for them. So there was never discussion about the value that a buyer's agent provides to that buyer because they didn't have to. They were like, look, nice to meet you. I'll come pick you up at the hotel. We'll go buy you a house and it won't cost you anything.
Yeah.
That's the way it was.
Yeah.
So they didn't ever have to show any value. So now they have to show value because the buyer potentially is paying that side of the commission. So now all of a sudden agents are like, whoa, I've got to show that I'm actually qualified and equipped to do that.
Right.
And the interesting thing, and I don't have any hard stats on it, but I know it to be true, is that with the more experienced buyer's agents right now, their commissions have not gone down. They've actually gone up a little bit in many markets. So in some markets we still see the seller still paying the buyer side, but in many markets the buyer's paying their own commission, and so it hasn't negatively really affected it so much. Now in some markets it may be, and it's still early, right? It's only not even a year old since all this started going down. So it will be interesting to see how the agents kind of adapt to this. And a lot of that comes back to them really being able to show their value. The people that are suffering most with all these changes are the little first-time home buyers.
Who aren't selling a house to buy a house, but they're just coming in.
And if the house they're buying, that seller's not willing to pay their commission, they got to come up with a commission, and that's hard, right? They can barely come up with a down payment, and it's hard for veterans and all those things, right?
Through that, yeah.
Yeah, so that's who's been harmed, and the attorneys, did they understand that was going to happen? I don't know. I don't think they cared.
Yeah.
I don't think they cared. So I think the challenge is we've got not the people that are experienced buyers and sellers, because those typically the higher end stuff, the sellers are just going to pay the buyer commission because they can't. They got the equity, why not? But it's those lower end deals, veterans, minority buyers and sellers, all that group is going to suffer. And that's going to continue to stall the real estate market because we will not push that buyout market.
That is such a really good point. When we look at getting this real estate market going again, and we're always talking about lower interest rates. Well, what does lower interest rate do? It means it's more affordable to buy a house, and therefore your down payment can be lower, and all these things, right? But when you talk about now having to pay a buyer commission, I mean, people are getting into houses with 3% down. Well, gosh, all of a sudden now you're coming to earn this money to the table is now doubled effectively.
Right.
And that can make it twice as long to save up to get that house.
Right. Yeah, it's a problem. And I think, we've got the consumers never really understood kind of how the whole commission, still they don't understand how the whole commission things work. And now what's weird about it is that, so as a relocation director, You were told when you got an RMC referral that you are never to discuss policy with the client, with the transferee. Now you have to discuss policy because their policy dictates whether their commission is paid.
Say that again.
So when a transferee comes in from a corporation, they're either going to pay the buyer's commission or they're not.
Yep.
And some corporations are paying it and some are waiting and seeing to see if they have to pay it. So now all these, transferees are coming in, and the real estate agent and the relocation director says, who's paying your commission? You have to discuss their policy with them. And we were told to never discuss policy.
Right.
So what's happening is because many of the corporations, and you were at ERC, you were there, and every meeting that I went to, every session I went to, most of the corporations, except the really big ones, were saying, we're going to wait and see what happens. We're going to wait and see if we have to pay the buyer commission.
Yeah, we're not going to come out and say we're going to pay it.
Right, they don't want to pay it if they don't have to.
Nobody's asking me to pay it.
Right. So the problem is, all these transferees are a test case. So as these transferees come through, if there is no policy established, they're going to be ready to buy a house, and the seller's not going to pay their commission, say no. So now they've got to go back to the corporation and try to get it paid through exception.
That's a big exception too.
Right.
That's not like, oh, we have an extra TV to create.
Right.
That's like 3% of the
Right.
purchase price of the home.
So a lot of companies are waiting to see because they don't want to spend the money if they don't have to. But the problem is the transferees are the ones that are going to suffer through that because they are the test case. They are actually having to figure this out as they go through the process.
Yep.
And that's a problem. Let's say they want to make an offer on a house at 5 o'clock on a Friday. Nobody's at the corporate office. They can't buy the house because they don't know if they can get their commission paid. And why would they pay it themselves? They're moving on behalf of the corporation.
Right. And they don't want to float that money to see if they get reimbursed for it. I mean, that's a big float. I mean, you're talking about
and it's taxable income, by the way.
Talk about a $500,000 house and 3% of that's 15 grand.
Right. Yeah. So if the corporation does pay it, it's also taxable income, so it's got to be grossed up. So that even increases the cost to the corporation.
We've got some comments coming in here. Some of these are just really good. Justin, I see your question too. We're gonna get these questions in here as well as these comments. Drew Phillips says, I love where we are at now post lawsuit, but hate how we got here. As an old real estate salesperson, I would much more prefer to negotiate my own pay based on my value prop rather than simply accept what another agent could or could not negotiate with their seller. Interesting point.
I would agree with that.
Now is the time to show your value, for sure. Christian Terned, in one of the best takes on this, said, I just heard, he says, I just heard from 2.4 commission to 2.6 commission for buyers agents on another webinar today. So he's supporting what you said about it's going up actually from an average of 2.4 to 2.6. Super interesting. Is that because people are negotiating their own commissions instead of just getting what the seller put in there?
Now everybody's kind of fighting for it instead of just being in the MLS. It is what it is. Now it's an actual discussion, and it's a point of negotiation. So if the seller's paying it, they're actually requesting it through the offer.
That's fascinating.
So
that's fascinating. Scott Tompkin, one of the best takes, says the attorneys who sued NAR should only be paid 2.5% of the suit. They've gotten plus or minus 40%. How is that fair?
They're getting $418 million or something crazy.
They should only get 2.5. That's the quote of the day, Scott.
Yeah,
you win.
That's awesome. I love it.
2.5% of the suit. I love it. People are laughing about that.
They're getting millions and millions, and the people in the class action, they say they're going to get something like $900.
Yeah.
But it's going to be less than that because more people are going to come into the class action suit. So it's going to probably end up being a couple $100.
People are getting an insignificant amount of money, and lawyers are making
clean it up.
Wow.
And they're not done with this, unfortunately, I fear.
Are they going to sue like every state or something?
No, I think they will go after different things. I think there's one of the suits is from class action buyers saying that they shouldn't have to pay the buyer commission. I mean, it's endless if they really want to.
And the lawyers are the only ones that are going to win.
Yeah, right. So
This is great. Sadly, all who was damaged was exactly who the big lawyers said they were looking to protect. Don't get me started on those jokers.
That's so true. Whoever said that, I agree.
Yeah, Drew again. Christian saying the transferee family is losing out on their dream home because it takes too long to get the offer, to get the exception approved. Super interesting. Yeah, when this real estate market heats up again, as everyone's kind of predicting next year, I mean, is that going to change the way that these things operate? Because, you know, going back when there was 30 offers on the house
Right.
2-3 years ago,
Right.
you know, you didn't have time to mess around with who's going to pay
Right.
this and that. You had to be swift.
Yeah, it could. I mean, we got a lot of unknowns coming ahead for sure.
And these transferees are the guinea pigs.
Yeah, they are. They are the test case. You know, I talked to Michael Clark from Boeing, and he was, you know, they have a huge program. They really like, I don't know, 9,000 people a year or something crazy. I mean, I don't know if they do any more, but, you know, back in the day. And he was like, the first week after the lawsuit, we had like 7 exception requests. He goes, I don't have the manpower to do that. I don't have the manpower to deal with all these exceptions and what that was going to do to the budget. So the bigger entities are kind of making decisions and adjusting budget because they have to. But it's these smaller corporations that do only a handful that are gonna experiment with it. And that's to, I think, the detriment of the transferees. But I understand they don't want to put out more money than they have to. But we're talking about transferee satisfaction and acceptance rates, and they may end up renting instead of buying if they're not going to pay the commission. So I think you're talking about overall transferee satisfaction comes down to you better figure out how you're going to handle this, whether you make it policy, but you better have if this happens, then we're going to do this, and if this happens, we're going to do this, because you can't just wing it. You can't wing it because you're going to end up losing some really valuable transferees that you want.
Great point. Really great point. We've got some questions coming in here. What's up, Amar? I see you, buddy. Random, but I've never seen Ben with a bad hair day. And you never will, Amar, because I'm quitting. I'm quitting by the time 16K rolls around. You'll never see it, Amar. Appreciate you, buddy, out here in LA. Gotta live fly out here in LA. We need a disclaimer here on this webinar regarding the discussion of compensation percentages among licensees and brokerages. Things being put in these comments must be considered carefully. Thank you, Kathleen. I'll consider that the disclaimer.
We don't need to talk amounts.
Yeah, there you go. This is, yeah, thanks, Kathleen. Appreciate it. Don't talk amounts. Whatever, yeah. Here, let's see here. We got a question here from Justin. 1 second here. There we go. All right, I'm getting a note from our producer Samara here. Can you do the L by your head?
Oh, am I like not? Is the camera not like working on me?
There you go. Beautiful. All right, fabulous. There you go. Awesome. We got these new cameras and they're too smart for us. They're doing things.
And I move a lot, so that's kind of a problem.
It's awesome. Hope you like the cameras and everything. Get in the comments. Let us know how we're doing for you out here. Hit that like button again. Justin has a question. He says, impact of incoming immigration policies on domestic real estate. Really interesting question, Justin.
You know, don't want to get into politics, but certainly I think, you know, the administration coming in is going to create, I've been listening to quite a few, there was a lot of immigration stuff at WRC. I'm sure you saw. Tons and tons. I didn't go to many of them because I was going to the real estate stuff, but I think you know, everything's about to be harder, and that's unfortunate. But I think the companies that know what they need to do are prepared to deal with that, and I think they've dealt with it before. So you know, immigration is a really important part of many industries.
Global mobility, global talent. I mean, it's huge, you know, and we look at where unemployment is right now, and it's still relatively very low, you know, and so having that talent pipeline is important. You know, we have the fortune, in a way, of this being the Trump 2.0 now, so now we know kind of what the first administration did. So now I think in some ways we can, you know, have knowledge of probably the way it's going to operate the second time around. And I've been listening to a lot of immigration, you know, content and stuff, and some of our clients are immigration firms and things, you know, and I think they understand what's going to happen. I mean, you're going to have it's not going to make it easier. I'll say that, right? There's not going to be more immigration, right? And there's going to be things like the student visas and stuff like that, the OPT programs and things like that, if they're called, that are going to probably be affected. But I mean, are those going to affect the housing market? I don't know if it's going to have a super material impact to the housing market. You know, have you heard of any policy? Remember Canada did this thing.
Yeah.
What was it, a year or 2 years ago now? You know, it was actually a big thing for WERC. They were really trying to work on this issue where they limited the home sales to foreign nationals, I guess. And, you know, do you ever hear anything like that being talked about in the United States?
I haven't. You know, and we don't have the talent pool here that we need.
Yeah. To continue being the leader in the world for the Teslas and the Googles and the Microsofts.
Right. So I think considering the talent that we need, we better figure out how to get the right talent here. And I know, you know, all kinds of opinions on immigration, but I think when you make immigration harder, that makes it more expensive for the corporation to have to do it. It delays the process. It makes it longer, which means it takes a long time to get the people here. They don't typically buy houses when they come because they maybe are here only on short-term assignment.
Yeah, you're not here long-term,
So I don't think it will materially affect the real estate side of it. They typically will, you know, rent 3 to 5 years or however long they're here, unless they do make a permanent move. So I don't know that it will really affect corporate relocation long term. It will affect the corporations long term because it will be harder to get the talent they want, which is unfortunate.
Yeah. Well, and all immigrated talent is by nature a relocation or long-term assignment of some sort, right? So I mean, in that way, you know, it's good for volumes for our business. It's an interesting question, Justin. I don't know if we have the answer. I have been hearing a lot about foreign investment in residential real estate. You know, you hear a lot about institutional investment, whether it's like BlackRock buying up you know, homes. And I also, you know, and I see this in my own neighborhood in Dallas, you know, foreign investment buying up houses, you know, and I do wonder if that has inflated the price of housing at all, you know, having a lot more demand than there is supply or you know, organic supply.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Christian saying you often need at least some level of credit history if you come in from abroad. Great point. You know, it's really hard to even get a car, right? Christian, we talked about that when you were on the show. It's hard to even get a car or a cell phone plan sometimes. You know, if you don't.
It's the truth.
Have those things.
We don't make it easy.
It'll take a while before you can get a mortgage. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, this is great, Teresa. You're so dynamic with these things, and I love the ideas, and you have so much support, so many people out there. Get in the comments if you got questions out there for Teresa. I'm really curious because your entrepreneurial journey kind of is like my own, so I'm just curious. You know, you started your business in 2020, you know, kind of out of necessity. In some ways it was the hardest time to start a business. In some ways it was kind of the best time because, you know, obviously things were in tumult, but we didn't know we were about to go into 2 years of just being gangbusters too, followed by 2 years of just being like, what happened, you know? You know, I'm curious, you know, as you kind of look back on those 4 years of, you know, feast and famine, you know, what lessons kind of have you learned along the way as an entrepreneur?
I think one of the things I learned just from being laid off that has carried me through my consulting is that you have to be your own advocate. And I did not do that. I worked for a company for a long time and we made millions of dollars in profit. My departments made millions of dollars in profit. Wow. And I made the mistake of assuming that people in the company knew that. And there had been a lot of change at the top and the company went public. And so I continued to assume that they knew that I was the person driving all this. I had a great staff, you know, who was very creative. And I'm one of those people that, so when NRT was started, there was a lot of money and they kind of left us alone. And so I'm one of these people that I asked for forgiveness instead of permission. So I created a lot of programs and I was just like, boom, just do it. And nobody ever told me no because my local leadership trusted me. And so as years progressed, I continued to assume that they knew what I was doing and that they trusted what I was doing, and that wasn't the case, you know, because everybody was looking at every penny, and the market had changed, and it was just a different dynamic. So one of the things I really talk to my clients about is making sure that your leadership knows the value that you bring, you personally bring to this, that it's not like they can get rid of you and it's going to be the same. And if they can, then you're not doing your job. Because you need to make sure that you are the driving force behind what's happening and whatever you're running. And I didn't do that. And so when I got laid off, along with most of my staff and 200 people around the country, I was like, don't they know? Don't they know how valuable I am? And they didn't. And that's on me. So I learned through that is that if you want to make yourself layoff proof, you had better let people know what you're doing.
You know,
don't assume it.
I think it's such a great lesson, because I talk to people who are operationally excellent and who are great executors in the business, and they kind of sometimes believe that their work speaks for itself.
Right.
And they don't have to toot their own horn. In fact, that's kind of, you know, nobody wants to be, you know, self-aggrandizing.
Right.
But at the same time, it's not obvious.
Right.
What you're doing.
The business just happens, and they just think that it's just happening. And so I think too, relocation in a brokerage particularly tends to kind of work in a kind of a, you know, they're very insular sometimes, and they just do their thing, and nobody really knows. You're just over there making money, or if you work at a service, you're just doing the service or whatever. But you had better make sure they understand the value that you're actually bringing to this company and what it means in not only service and clients, but in dollars. And that's why I don't understand whenever a relocation department is a service center, because you have not a leg to stand on. If the market goes south, they're going to say, you cost us money, or you're not making us any money, you're gone. Because they don't look at the other value you bring.
You're a fixed cost too. You're not you're not variable.
Even though you're bringing
commission
business to the
based.
company and you're making the agents happy, there's no money there. So I don't take a client unless they're willing to be profitable. Because if they're not willing to make a profit at what we're going to do, then I don't want to be part of it.
What does that mean though? Because that sounds kind of obvious. Like, I mean, every business is in business to be profitable.
Because some departments run as, like I said, as a service center, which means they bring in business, but they don't actually make a profit in the department.
They don't keep that profit and that revenue on that book. They're just a cost center, not a profit.
And so the profit is either going to the agents or the brokerage bottom line in the way of additional transactions and things like that. So for me is that you've got to pay for yourself. You've got to figure out a way to pay for yourself. And yourself and your department. And so that means you just have to structure things in a way that will allow you to do that.
So does that mean you have to really kind of almost change the way you account for relocation business inside your
Without
brokerage?
question.
So you almost have to have like a P&L for relocation?
Without question. You without question.
How many brokerages that you kind of walk into keep relocation on its own P&L versus blend it in or treat a relocation director like an SG&A item as a fixed cost?
Most do, and if they don't, when I'm done with them, they do. Because you really have to understand, particularly because let's face it, in our industry we have a lot of cost like travel and things like that can get very expensive, right? With all these. If you're part of a network, you go to the network stuff. It's a lot,
you go to RDC and you go to ERC.
Regional
and you go
stuff.
To,
I mean, it adds up. So it can add up pretty quickly. So you've really got to pay attention to making sure that the expenditures, you're getting a payback on those. And it's sometimes hard you can't line item it, you know, like, did I get a piece of business from RDC? Maybe, maybe not. But the value of being at RDC is the expertise and the experience and the networking and all those things that you get. So I think you have to be able to justify those expenses, and a lot of brokers just see it as a line item cost. They don't see. So one of my things is that I tell my clients, I'm like, look, you need to tell them all the things you're going to do while you're at WUC. You're going to meet with some RMCs. You're going to make X amount of connections. You're going to follow up. You're going to do this. You're going to do this. You have to show them that you're not just there to go to the cocktail parties. You know, you have to really prove that value is there is going to be a payoff from all this stuff I'm doing, and you better make sure you do it. You know?
Yeah, really interesting. I'm part of some entrepreneur groups that kind of coach me through my journey and everything. And one of the things that really helped me in my business is when I did get P&L visibility for revenue and cost based on service verticals.
Right.
So we do, basically three things, right? We do consulting, we do recruitment, and we do video production, right? And so we kind of blended a lot of the costs for those things into one, employee cost, management cost, whatever, travel, whatever. And it wasn't until we broke them out that I discovered, oh crap, I'm losing a ton of money on this vertical over here, and this one's subsidizing all of it.
And maybe
here.
that's okay, but you want to know it,
But you
right?
need to know it.
You need to know. You need to understand what's costing you money. I mean, there are people that are buying online internet leads that are spending a fortune, and they don't even track what their conversion rate is.
What's that process like? Like, I'm always curious about customer acquisition and lead acquisition. I know a little bit about it in the moving industry. It seems like it's been escalating for the last 15 years since I've been tracking it. What's the state of that like in real estate?
I'm a big believer in online leads. Many people are not, but I manage the online call center, and the last year I was there, we did 60,000 online leads
Holy
through
smokes.
the 5-state region that I was managing.
Wow.
So I believe in them, and we closed a lot. And so it's about, you have to work them correctly. You have to have the correct agents doing it. But the challenge is that
Drew
you
says
or me.
it's good to
Is
see
it you
Ben
or
has
me?
pants on. Thanks, Drew. You know I got pants on, Drew. You don't do this much work on your hair and not put pants on, Drew. Get out of here.
So I think the online lead situation is, for a long time it was pay to play, where you had to either buy zip codes or you had to buy territory, and it's still that way with some entities. But now they've kind of shifted, and that Zillow kind of did that, was to now referral fee based, because they looked at the relocation model. And the challenge is that people were buying zip codes and then not doing anything with the leads. And so the customers were upset, and they were blaming Zillow.
Yeah.
They were saying,
Nobody called me.
nobody did anything.
Yeah.
So now they realize that if you do it referral fee based, then there's no upfront investment, and so the people are more likely to work them harder because they want a closing and they're not having to pay for them. Yeah. So I'm a big believer in them. I encourage all my clients to do them. There's all kinds of affinity programs out there. There's that are mortgage. There's a lot of mortgage companies that are using kind of third party, and I don't mean third party in the relocation management sense. I mean entities that are managing the mortgage leads for them, that are available to get leads. And there are some. I listened to a demo the other day of a thing called Real Intent. Have you heard of them? They scrape data. They're AI, and they scrape data from the internet, and it's freaky what they know about people.
Wow.
So they can show move intent. So they focus on listings. And they can tell based on everything you're doing on the internet through AI. They can tell if you're going to move, if you're going to move, what the percentage is, and their conversion rate's huge, and they're a new company, and so they're selling zip codes, but they don't take a referral fee because they're not a referral company. They're a data management company.
So what's the revenue model there? Like,
They sell zip codes,
and so you buy a zip code. Is it like?
and they're like $200 a month. It's ridiculous. So you buy a zip code, either the brokerage or the agent can buy a zip code, but you got to work the leads. You got to work the leads.
And they're giving you contact information?
Yes, it's crazy. I mean, I was kind of freaked out when I was looking at the demo, but
we got to talk about this. I bet these movers in here too would want to know about this.
So they basically just go mine data. That's all they do, and then they sell it.
And they don't sell it to one entity exclusively. I imagine they sell it to multiples?
I think they protect zip codes. I think you buy a zip code and it's yours.
Or maybe by vertical, by service. Like
I don't remember exactly.
A mover and a realtor or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's fascinating. But there are lots of opportunities out there besides just the traditional stuff, and I certainly think the online leads. It's been hard for some relocation directors and departments to adapt to the online lead thing because they're so used to it being high conversion and when I started managing the online lead stuff years and years ago, back right when Zillow started, back in like 2003 was when I started managing online leads. It's like we tried to treat it like relocation, and it's not. The selling cycle is really long, and there's a lot of nurturing, and you got to have agents that are really persistent and use systems and things like that. We were trying to use relocation agents, and it didn't work because they're touchy-feely agents, and that's not the kind of agents you need for online leads. So there's a huge opportunity there for brokers, and I think for relocation departments, and I encourage that they do online leads if they can get a team of agents that are efficient in handling them.
Well, this is where I think we all have to go as a managed relocation industry because these things are just not managed the same way that they were, right? And the movement, the activity is still out there. It's going to be out there. I mean, obviously, we're going through kind of a depressed couple of years that I think we're going to turn the corner on next year. I'm really excited about. But we need to get a lot more scrappy about the way we go out and acquire customers.
Right.
Because it's going to go back to a fragmented residential, we call it COD in the moving industry. We're going to have to go out and find these individuals and do the things that we haven't had to do in the past.
Right, I agree.
So I love these tips here. I could talk to you for a long time about that. I do have one more big question for you before we get into our overrated, underrated. Hit that like button, get in the comments here. Appreciate everybody out there who's rooting for my pants. Thank you so much. Y'all are just really raising the bar here, honestly. The decorum here, and it's really good stuff. Let's see here. Drew says there is a whole brokerage here in the Bay built off of using the data scraping. Every stroke you make is tracked. You know who you are buying or selling before you do. It's really interesting, Drew. Yeah, we're going to talk about that offline. Yeah. But, you talk about Zillow and you talk about some of these big websites that have all this data, and we've heard a lot about Zillow, different strategies they've been trying to employ and buying houses sight unseen and things like that. And it seemed like they kind of pulled back from that. Yeah. But, I mean, when you look at a company like a Zillow, we're just going to use Zillow for a second. Are they going to run this whole thing one day? I mean, how do you see this all playing out as we rush towards what seems like massive consolidation across all industries? And you look at the way Amazon and Walmart kind of dominate e-commerce with some exceptions. I mean, do we see Zillow kind of getting in there and gobbling up some of these things? What are your thoughts?
Well, we've got, based on the NAR settlement and lawsuits, the MLS no longer is the vehicle to share what compensation is, right? Whenever an agent goes to look at a house to show to their client, compensation is not there any longer. And that's really what the MLS was for before. It was to tell what the cooperating commission was, the compensation was. So now it's not there. So the MLS has less value than it did before. So when you have something like Zillow, which kind of is similar to the MLS because they have all the properties pretty much that are listed, you have to question, where does the value lie in the MLS any longer? And NAR owns like 85% of the MLSs in the country. So it's a problem because really, I believe those two things should not be together.
NAR and the MLS?
Right.
Yeah.
My
Because one's an
opinion,
association and the other's a utility
I don't think they should be together.
I always look at it funny when associations own, properties and own, not properties in the real estate sense, but properties like in, like an MLS or a database or things like that. I'm always curious if there's a conflict of interest or maybe even an ethical issue there.
Sure.
NAR has been, NAR, first of all, I think is the largest association or special interest kind of group in the country. It's I think it's the biggest, and they own that. They were really smart about registering the term realtor or realtor. I never know realtor. How do you like to be called? Realtor.
Realtor.
Somebody should go out there and trademark realtor.
It's said enough. They should.
You do well. But I think that's fascinating. I always sometimes look at the way the moving industry, which is so deregulated now, and everyone can call themselves a mover even when they're not a professional mover.
Right.
And I always wondered if mover should be a registered trademark to show a certain level of craftsmanship and ethics and compliance, etc. So I admired on the one hand, but on the other hand, they've really built this. They've really built this ecosystem that they control, and you have to pay to play.
You had to be a part of NAR to get access to the MLS.
Yeah.
And I don't know, is that cool? I don't really think it is.
I don't know.
So I think
seems kind of like a monopoly in some ways.
Kind of, yeah. And so there's certainly a handful of brokers and agents out there that are not a member of NAR, but and there are some MLSs that are not owned by NAR, so you don't have to have that. But NAR, my opinion, had gotten very complacent and a bit bloated, and they've had a lot of bad stuff happening, which we won't talk about, but everybody knows. And so I think it was, it kind of needed to happen, which is unfortunate for our industry because they are the association of our industry, so that's not great. But I think what happened to that entity, and it's still evolving, and it will continue to evolve, and I think that's fine. I think that's fine. I think I believe it kind of needs to be completely retooled. If that will actually happen, I don't know. There's a lot of powerful people in there that are fighting that.
Yeah.
But, you know, back to the Zillow thing, I think Zillow is, they figured out, what you and I were talking about, how they had perspective that was different than everybody on the inside. You know, when Zillow came about, it was like, oh my God, Zillow, what's going to happen? It's going to be horrible. They're going to put everybody out of business. Well, they didn't. They learned how to capitalize on it and learned how to
and drive leads to
how
you.
to sell our own business back to us, which is exactly what they do.
That's great.
And it was brilliant.
Yeah.
And good on them for figuring it out, because everybody was so busy trying to protect their information in the MLS and not let it out to the public. But the cat's out of the bag, and now the consumer has access to data in ways that they never had before, and it's never going to go back in. You know, it's never going to be.
The genie's out of the bottle.
It's out of the bottle, and you know, I think that is something that everybody just needs to make their peace with, and you have to figure out how you're going to play with Zillow if you want to, and if not, you better figure out how to generate your own local leads.
Your own local leads, and good luck trying to beat them.
Right, because their SEO and what they spend on that is crazy. So,
but now there's other ones like Realtor.com, right? Which
Move.com.
Move.com, which I think are owned by, they were at one point both together.
Yeah.
The
I mean,
same
there's, you know, a lot of them out there.
Even owned them.
So there's certainly, you know, a lot of competition out there, and more coming all the time.
But to your point earlier, those are going to be disrupted by the people who haven't even declared they're moving yet.
Yeah.
Right? Like to your point, right? These AI data scraper predictors, because Realtor's great if you've listed your home,
Right.
or if, you know, Move.com, if you know, but if you're not, you don't almost even know that 3 months from now, 6 months from now, I mean, these things kind of happen and develop on you, and yet somebody's out there, some algorithms monitoring your keystrokes. Like, you gonna move, buddy, in 3 months.
Yeah, I mean, they're watching.
They're watching, yes.
They are.
Hit that like button. I know we're going long, but as I promised you, and I always deliver, we will be doing an overrated, underrated. This segment is the favorite segment. Everyone waits for this one. Hit that like button. Send a little heart out there to Teresa here. She's been a great sport, answering all these great questions. This has been incredibly informative.
Thank you.
Now, we're going to play a game.
Okay.
You ready?
Sure.
You like playing games?
Yeah.
We'll see. Let's see how it goes here. All right, this is overrated, underrated. Y'all know the deal here. Do you know the rules, Teresa?
No.
There's only 2 rules. The first, I will give you a topic, and you will tell me if it is either overrated or underrated.
Yes.
These are your 2 options.
I knew that rule.
Do not deviate.
Okay.
You will have the opportunity to
Explain.
Okay. You defend yourself, your position.
Okay.
The second rule is I will tell you if you're right or wrong. Okay. All right, let's get going here. Overrated, underrated. The first one up is the future of the relocation industry. Is it overrated or underrated?
I think it is underrated.
Ooh, nice.
What do you think?
Well, now you're turning the tables on me. I don't know if that's part of the rule set. You know, I love it. I hope you're right. Yeah, I think things are what we want them to be. You know, how do we choose to look at them? You know, I think we underestimate our ability to make our own future, right?
Right.
And the way that
That's it. You just said it right there.
You know what I'm saying? The way that we move and act about the industry, I think, will determine oftentimes the outcome. And I think a lot more has to do with what's in here than what's out there, you know? So in that way, when you talk to people like yourself who have these strategies about how to move in this environment, it's great. When you talk to a traditional managed relocation company that's got potentially a lot of bloat, an old strategy, they're just keep clicking refresh on their inbox, waiting for the new home initiations to come in, and they're not coming. You know, that could be a long quarter for you.
Right. It's up to us. It's up to
us.
And that's why I think it's underrated, because I think those that will take the initiative and will do what they need to do to get the business from whatever source they can. And I'm not talking about just transactions too. We're talking about ancillary business, settlement services, concierge type services, all kinds of other services that play into a real estate transaction. There's money to be made in those as well. Some you can legally, some not so much. there's huge opportunity in the actual movement of people. And van lines. I mean, there's money to be made, and so it's a matter of whether you're gonna go after it.
It's really interesting because this industry went through kind of an entrepreneurial era in the 80s and 90s. I feel like when there was a lot of really smart, strategic people in this business who had a lot of energy and were kind of coming in with new ideas, business models, and built some really great companies. And then we had some people who weren't from this industry who came in and they kind of tinkered and they tried to kind of reinvent the wheel, and they tried to go after the lump sum, and they tried to go after these things at the fringes of the industry where there wasn't really a solid revenue model around it. And they played in it and they disrupted it, but they didn't really do a lot and make a lot of inroads.
Right.
And now I'm seeing people who are actually smart about this industry, and I'm putting you in that category, who are actually who are disrupting the industry and who are thinking differently. And I think that's when I get really excited, is when people who know what they're talking about start thinking differently. And I think that's when some really cool new solutions can come.
I think the worst thing that happened in our industry is that was competition. And what happened in the competition is that prices got driven down, service got compromised, because particularly the RMCs were in such a competitive environment. And all they tried to do was compete by cutting price. Cutting price to where all of a sudden now everything's free.
Buying the business.
They were
I'll
buying
stroke
the
you a
business.
check for $100,000.
So instead of elevating what they were offering, they just kept cutting. And I love my RMC friends, so I don't mean that personally.
Well, they know what they're doing.
They know what they're doing.
You know.
And that was maybe a survival method, but what it did was it wasn't great for our industry, because it rested all the cost and the referral fees on the shoulders of the broker, who didn't need to pay all that money, when really the corporation should have been paying more. Fee should have been, back in the day, corporations paid a per file fee. That's the way it worked. That rarely happens anymore.
Yeah. I mean, now everything's zero fee.
So we did it to ourselves.
Yeah.
And so the challenge is that now we got to put that aside and figure out how are we going to raise the value that's worth charging for.
Yeah. And I think find other verticals that you can monetize, right? I mean, look at the relocation industry. It's been predominantly based on home sale transactions, number one, van line accruals, number two, temp housing, probably number three. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No,
but we're not touching tax. We're not touching, immigration. We're not finding ways to touch any of that. And those are the other two legs of this global mobility stool. And when domestic U.S. relocation is impacted by these economic factors or whatever, there's still a ton of people all over the world that are moving. Is it sponsored? Is it managed? I don't know, TBD. But you got to find ways to, I think, monetize those verticals and also unlock the value that's up the value chain or upstream from relocation. Because to use your term about reactive versus proactive, relocation is a reaction. A home sale initiation or a household goods move is a reaction to a change that's happened in an employee benefit that's been initiated. But upstream from that is the immigration. Right, so before somebody ever has a house to buy or household goods to move or whatever, or temp housing that they need, they need a visa to be approved or not approved. Right. And RMCs aren't playing in that at all today. And so I think there's so many areas like that we can that our friends in the relocation management industry can unlock. So anyway, I think that there's a lot here. But it's all in the way you look at it. So a lot of folks in the comments are saying underrated right now.
Yeah.
Cutting prices sounds like the tire industry. It's brutal. Everybody's cutting prices.
It
but
is.
You gotta find
Stop
ways
it, people. Know your value. Know your value.
Oh my gosh, but it's so funny because, and I'll use these, right? I got my AirPods sitting over here, right? These are AirPods Pro. These are $200 on Black Friday. And yet there's all these other ear pods that you can buy that, maybe used to be $25, $20, $15, $7.99, and they're in a price war, but then these guys come along and find a way to charge me $200 for the same utility.
And you paid it.
And I pay it gladly.
Right.
And so it's like we're just looking at things different.
Right.
There was a book that was written back in 2006, I think it is, called Blue Ocean Strategy. Oh, you ever heard of this book? Oh my gosh, this book's incredible. It's about how to not swim in red shark infested waters, but find those blue oceans of opportunity where people, sharks aren't swimming, right? And be out there and existing on your own and kind of define your own category. And they talk about brands, and people are going to throw up all over this example, but like Yellowtail wine, how they start color coding their wine so people, and everybody started buying. Cirque du Soleil, they took the circus, which was going into the ground for years. Nobody wanted to go there. It was terrible. It smelled like elephant poop, animal cruelty. I mean, all these things, right? And then they turned it into this magnificent $100 ticket.
A million of them. Uber.
Yeah.
Netflix.
Yeah.
I mean, figure it out a different way.
Yes.
Figure out a different way.
There's so much of that out there.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, point being is, I think there's a lot here. Cool stuff. Underrated, she says. You know what? You have 1 point. Good job. All right. Next one up here. Overrated, underrated, Teresa. Local business development.
Well, way underrated, as you can tell, based on...
Why? Everybody's talking about scaling. Everybody wants ubiquity.
No.
Everybody wants to be the Amazon and own the whole category, nationwide, worldwide. What is it about local that
Because
works?
that's your superpower. You are, particularly brokers, are in that community. You are invested in that community. Jeremy Norman, our friend you had on there.
Love Jeremy. Shout out to
one
Jeremy.
of my clients in Atlanta. Jeremy knows how to be a part of his community, and he embraced his markets that he's moved into, and he continues to grow.
Just grow so
and
much.
he just is getting into those markets, and he shows them that he is invested in that market. And when you look at a brokerage, their signs are everywhere. Their agents live there. They're in the market. That's where the power is because you know the people you're dealing with.
Yeah.
When an RMC goes after a corporation, they're sitting in a corporate headquarters and they're trying to get that business in all these different markets, which is fine. The big ones, they should have that. But there's many mid to small size corporations and other entities that are just kind of trying to figure out this onesies, twosies relocation. I mean, I've had corporations that have called me, oddly enough, for whatever, and I've tried to give them to certain RMCs. They go, oh, no, it's too small.
It's too small.
I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Really, you're that? Like,
Yeah.
it's too small?
Yeah.
So, and then I give it to one of my broker friends who figures it out.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that I think, the local business development is what the future is for our relocation directors and departments, is that they better figure out how to build those local relationships where they can be in their face and they can build the relationships that will really deliver that business on an ongoing basis.
Love it. Drew's saying underrated. Rob's saying underrated. Amar, who's in the tire business, saying underrated. Christian saying underrated. You can save on travel costs by going to local functional.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was so funny because I was just riding along with the EVP over here at Move Happy, and we were talking about the moving industry, and he's like, yeah, we went and we knocked on like 50 doors of 50 senior living communities, right?
Great source of business.
And he's like, it was grueling, but you learn a lot.
You do.
You're driving away to the next one, and you get a call, and then you get an order, and it's where it's at.
Seniors, first-time home buyers, military, any type of group that is a loyalty-based type group. And that's why USAA, which you talked about earlier, was so powerful and successful, because those people are very loyal to USAA.
Yeah.
And so if you can find organizations that are loyalty-based, either by the employment or by the association of the group. That's why when like Costco tried to do an affinity program, it didn't really work. Because do you feel loyalty to Costco? No, I want my 20 roll of toilet paper for cheap.
My meat tube.
Yeah, so you don't feel a loyalty to Costco, but there are organizations and people that are members that feel very loyal to those organizations. And if they tell you should buy your house through these people, they will do it.
Yeah.
They will do it.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great point. I love it. I think it's great. Underrated. Let's go. 2 points. All right, 2 points for Teresa. Let's keep it moving here. Overrated, underrated. Next one up. Awards.
Awards. Okay. Here's my thing about awards. I think they're way overrated.
All right. Okay. Tell me why.
Here's why. Because people are going to be mad at me for this.
Maybe. Only if they have awards.
So the problem with awards is that the people that win them don't typically articulate why they won them very well.
Okay.
So on social media, you'll see, I got the largest number of outgoing referrals, whatever, award. Or I got the Distinguished Service Award. What does that mean? So my problem with awards is that if you don't take the time to explain what you won that award for in a meaningful way for the end user, then what is the point?
Yeah.
Because nobody cares if you generated a lot of outgoing referrals, honestly. They don't care. How does that help them unless they were a recipient of the referral? So when you're talking about awards, and I know particularly when you're dealing with a real estate community, you have to give awards to the agents because they need that. That's like a thing, right? And I understand that and appreciate that. But when you're talking about relocation departments and things like that, I think the problem with awards is that we don't do a good job of saying why we won that award and how it benefits people that are going to work with you.
I love that. It kind of, the way I look at it, what you're saying is, your customer doesn't care. Tell your customer why they care about your award.
Right. It's features versus benefits.
Yeah. Oh,
don't talk about the feature.
Yes.
Don't talk about the feature. You
Tell
talk
me
about where the
benefit.
benefit is. And that's we do a very poor job of that because we're so busy doing sound bites and trying to get the accolades. But what you need to do is say why you won that, and how does that translate to that person that's reading that right now, the end user.
Love it. Awards are popular. Kathleen's saying awards are popularity contests providing service exceeding expectations. What earns future business awards are, quote, inside
If you do it right, if you talk about it in the right way, it can.
I love your take on this. I think it's a great take. I think it's an actionable take, not unlike everyone who's anti-award right now because they're. Well, oh gosh, what the poor kids are getting? The poor kids are getting it so bad for these participation trophies, right? And I said, listen, all this angst about participation trophies, by the way, I'm sorry, but college degrees are the biggest participation trophy you could ever get, okay? And yet we require them to get a job, okay? Hey, you know what else is a participation trophy? Your paycheck. You go for 2 weeks, you show up, you don't miss a day, you get a full check, okay? So that's a participation trophy, all right? But so let's stop, okay? But I love what you're saying about the awards and telling people why you won them. I also think when you're talking about Kathleen saying about these inside baseball kind of vanity awards and things like that, I would love to see empirical data go into, with some transparency, go into awards. Like, I think there's an opportunity for associations to give awards based on empirical data where there's transparency, right? You see some people give awards out, like not necessarily like a WERC, but you see some people give awards out and like, oh, Relocation Management Company of the Year. But then you have 5 companies saying they won Relocation Management of the Year because if you just talk about customer satisfaction, we win it this way. If you talk about total cost of ownership, we win it this way. It's like, well, how can we have 5 Relocation Management Companies of the Year, over here? Or you get the Baker's dozen top 12. Top 12 doesn't help me at all. You know? So I think there's a lot of work we can do here on awards and the way that we talk about them.
I agree.
Yeah, this Drew saying 100% agree on the college degree. How many college degrees have you bought, Drew? You got a lot of kids out here in Cali, man. How many degrees are you paying for, everybody? Awards, okay, overrated. You got 3 points so far. You're on a heater right now. All right, let's keep it going. Overrated, underrated. Working at the office.
I am a fan of remote. So I'm going to say it's a little bit overrated.
All right, and we're sitting in an office here.
I know, sorry. Sorry, guys. But I do believe it does make it hard to establish a company culture when nobody's in the office. So if you're gonna do work from home, you better figure out how to create that culture and bring them together, and to where they feel like a culture. Because, I work from home. I've worked from home since 2017. Love it. My husband's worked at home as long as I've known him, and I think it can be a very powerful thing. I think some people struggle with it, and if they don't want to work at home, you need to kind of figure that out with them. But I don't know. I know a lot of the CEOs and the people at the top want everybody back in the office. I think that is because there's a lack of trust and they want eyeballs on their people, which is, a problem.
Trust, control, confidence, right?
Right. They want to make sure they're not doing whatever. And some people can't manage themselves, so some people can't do it.
Yeah.
But I would think for the most part, I think, working at the office is overrated.
Yeah. I disagree. I disagree. Okay, here's why. This conversation we're having right now, we could have done this remotely.
We could have.
I didn't have to fly 3 hours to freaking California, and you didn't have to drive an hour and 20 minutes from Orange County so we could sit here in this conference room right now and do this show for all of you who don't even have the common decency to be here right now yourself, okay? But I think that this conversation is way more dynamic. Yeah. We're now going on an hour and 20 minutes right now, and thank you for bearing with me here. But it's been dynamic, it's been fun.
Them bearing with us.
Yeah, thank you for bearing with me. Hit that like button if you're still here and alive right now. Make sure you have water, stay hydrated. But this is way better than it would have been if I zoomed you in here, because I could have zoomed your
But
head
we
in
wouldn't
over
need to
here.
do that every day.
No, we wouldn't need to do it every day.
What if we did it once a month?
I couldn't fly here once a month, but no, I know what you mean. I'm just kidding.
You know what I mean? So I think there are pros and cons.
So you like a hybrid approach?
Yeah, I like hybrid a lot, and I think you better be willing to make the trek into the corporate office, because I do think if you started out in the office and then you went remote, I think it was probably fine because you already built those relationships
and those habits.
And so my daughter is a perfect example. She works in LA at a law firm.
Yeah.
She did not want a job that was remote because she wanted to get in there and see how things worked and meet the people.
Yeah, and how are you going to get promoted? How are you going to get noticed? And how are you going to get that special project if,
But what it does, particularly for like RMCs, it allows them to find, and corporations, the best talent wherever it is.
Yeah.
So you're not limited to the talent that's in your market. You're unlimited to talent wherever it is, if they're willing to fly in periodically.
And frankly, and this is, I think, something that's underrated. By the way, Drew Phillips says Love and Relo is underrated. I agree with you. That's 1 point for Drew. But I love my little fiefdom, and I get to just decide who gets points. It's like kindergarten. You get a point. You get a point. But I agree. I think that people also, there's a trade-off.
Yeah.
And you're going to see people, I think, in offices get paid more than remote.
You think?
People aren't going to like that conversation.
Really?
Well, and here's why. They're not getting paid more, but people who work remote are going to get paid less.
Possibly.
Because if you're working in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, supporting an LA law firm, let's just use that example, versus the cost of living in LA.
Yeah.
That's
not cool. I think what it does is it allows the talent pool becomes unlimited. And I think, it's one of the challenges for relocation directors is that the broker wants the relocation director to be in the market. And I don't disagree with that, because I think they do need to be visible with the agents and all those things, but their coordinators that are just managing the referrals could be anywhere. So you could get some really good talent that's maybe not be available in your small market, that's available in another market that may be cheaper or more expensive, whatever. Do I think you should pay them differently? No, you should pay them whatever you're going to pay them in the local market. But to your point, you never know if that'll happen.
You pay people more. LA is a high cost of living area, right? So people here are going to make, using a coordinator, right? A coordinator might make $60K here. A coordinator in Mississippi might make $45,000, $50,000.
I would agree.
And some corporations, use that as justification to do remote call centers or even do offshore and nearshore stuff, right? So there's trade-offs, I think, but interesting. All right, next one up here, overrated, underrated. This is our last one. This might be our last one. Overrated, underrated, Los Angeles.
Oh God. Okay, I lived here for 12 years in LA. Boy, that is, right now I think it's overrated.
I don't know.
When I moved here, it was way underrated.
It's getting a lot of grief right now.
It is getting a lot of grief.
Why do you think
Well,
that's
I think, like I said, I lived here for 12 years before I moved to Orange County, and I love LA. Don't get me wrong, I love LA to come drive up here and visit LA, but I don't want to live in LA.
And get out before rush hour. Which
before
starts in, like, 2
traffic. I
minutes.
mean, it's a big city. It's
Yeah.
a really big city, and it's got its problems, and certainly, has many challenges. I think the Olympics are going to do magical things here, which is maybe good, maybe bad. I don't know. But LA
Cup
is
too,
unique unto itself, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing like it. And so in that regard, I think you have to appreciate LA for what it is, for sure. And you?
Yeah. Oh gosh, I always have fun when I'm here.
Absolutely.
The people are a little different.
Love that. I do, at least.
And I think I'm going to go overrated if I have to side on
Yeah.
the fence. Although I think the ratings have been going down lately.
Well,
so
that's the
it might
thing.
change the dynamic
That's the
a little
thing.
bit.
I mean,
maybe
the
there's
price.
opportunity.
If you just look at prices alone, that is overrated because it's when I look at the house that we owned here in 1999, I think we sold it for probably $385,000. It's probably worth about $2 million now.
Wow.
It's a little house this big that was built in 1926.
Right.
So there's your answer.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
That is, yeah, especially when coming from Texas where you
Right.
could,
Right.
golly.
Right. So we sold it and we went to Orange County and bought a bigger house for less money. But our house in Orange County is worth a lot more now than it was then.
Yeah.
But the part of it is pricing. Part of it's pricing.
Drew says, if you overrate LA, Ben, you're not going to the right places. Let me know, Drew. I'm about to go. Hey, I went to a nice restaurant last night. Went to Joey's over there.
Great restaurants here.
It was great. And,
Entertainment. I mean, look, there are many, many things I love about LA. There are many things I love about LA, for sure.
Drew says, hard when the place is overrated, the media in Hollywood the places underrated, the media in Hollywood are overrated. Samara, is that the last one we got there for us? I think it might be. No, shit, we got one more. Oh no, is this a bonus?
God. Oh Lord.
We got a bonus. Is this show not gone on long enough here? Is she getting paid by the minute to be here? Oh my
People
goodness.
are like,
People
enough
can we
already.
please, for the love of God. All right, last one, Samara. Samara's got one more for us. This is a curveball. Overrated, underrated. Bonus question. Dallas.
Okay, so I've lived in California longer than I lived in Dallas. So I am going to say underrated.
Wow.
And I probably wouldn't have said that a couple of years ago. But as I get older, I think I appreciate my hometown more. And, I still have a lot of friends and family there. And, I love it. Now, what I hate about Dallas is the weather, which is literally why I left. I hated the weather. Yes,
The
it's
heat
awful.
is wild hot.
Awful,
Crazy hot.
and I hated it, and so that's why I left. So when I remember Dallas, I think of it fondly without thinking about how horrible it is in August.
Yeah.
That's my problem, is
Yeah.
that I remember it, it's like having a baby. You don't remember the bad stuff, you remember the good stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what I remember
And
about
that's by
Dallas.
design. Otherwise,
Yeah,
you'd only
right.
have one baby.
Right,
If you
right.
remembered how bad
And no
it
one would
was.
live in Dallas.
No one lived in Dallas. Everyone with one child and no one would live in Dallas.
Because it's
That's
too hot.
great. Jana Edgar says underrated. Rob Zeitz says pants. Underrated. Thank you, Rob. Pro pants group out here getting political. I think Dallas is massively underrated.
Yeah.
I think it is the best city in Texas.
Oh yeah. I think that because I'm from there, but I would agree with you.
I think it's going to be the third largest MSA in a few years, surpassing Chicago soon.
Yeah.
It's growing. It's new. I think the restaurant culture there is actually better than people.
Yeah.
People
Well, it's
think
really
it is.
improved because it used to be kind of like Mexican restaurants and all
Tex-Mex,
that.
barbecue.
Now it's like really elevated. It's
Yeah, a
awesome.
lot of really good Asian cuisine there.
Yeah.
Some really
Yeah.
authentic stuff going on. Some fusion stuff going on.
Yeah. It's
So
awesome.
I think
and it's in the middle of the country. It's easy to get anywhere from there.
Yeah. Oh, transportation is fantastic, both driving and the airport,
Yeah.
as well. I think DFW's building a new terminal.
Are they?
Terminal F,
Wow.
I'm told. Producer Samara there says Terminal F's coming.
Wow.
So appreciate the hot tip on that one. Wow, you've done a really nice job today, all around. Rob Zeitz in Dallas, you always know you'll have Super Bowl Sunday free. Oh, stop it, Rob. That was uncalled for, Rob. I hope your Patriots never win again for the rest of your life. That's what you get, okay,
All right.
Rob? Yeah,
Are
I
you a
used to
Cowboy
like
fan?
Rob
Are you a
Zeitz.
Cowboy
Yeah,
fan?
I'm a Cowboy fan.
Me
You
too.
a Cowboy fan?
Sure.
Oh, gosh.
Once you're born in that city,
Yeah.
you don't ever get away from that.
Yeah. Yeah, our cowboy. That's a whole nother show. Teresa, this has been phenomenal. You've been so gracious with your time. I've really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you, everybody who's gotten in the comments. Hit that like button one more time. Leave some love for Teresa. You want to close us out with a final thought?
You know, I just appreciate all the people that are on the call. Many of them are my clients, and I learn more from them than they learn from me. You know, and I hope they know that, because it's one of those things that I feel like we're all on this journey together. We got to help each other figure this out, right,
Yeah.
as we move along. So that's kind of my parting words for sure.
Love it. Sounds good. Hey, everybody, tune in tomorrow. We have Lior Oren here, the founder and CEO of Move Happy, live in LA here in the Move Happy offices. So that's going to be phenomenal. Hear his story of moving from Israel, starting this business, being all over the world. It's a great story. Teresa, Howe, thank you so much for
You
being
bet.
here.
Thank you, Ben.
It's really a pleasure.
Love it.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody. Take care. See you tomorrow.
Thanks.